What made you nope out of a friendship? I was the only one starting conversations. So I stopped talking, and we never spoke again. She started using me as an alibi when cheating on her husband. Didn't even ask me first. Not that I would have agreed to it. It was so audacious. And her husband was a super nice guy that I really enjoyed hanging out with. And she ruined that friendship too by using me as her alibi. When my grandma got cancer and wasn't gonna go through chemo, so I needed emotional support by a friend, and she outright said to me that she would rather talk about the progress she made. A boy. My kidneys failed. They healed up. Then I got a funny looking lab test a few months later. I told a friend, I think my kidneys are failing again. She sighed loudly and said, "Ann, what's that?" to me. She'd just been complaining about her stupid, lazy co-workers for about half an hour, but she couldn't bother to listen to me. That was the last time I talked to her. My kidneys were okay, though. A girl I was friends with threatened to call the company I work for and make up something I didn't do to get me fired because I refused to take a day off to spend time with her after a breakup, although I offered to come over after work multiple days. I took a screenshot of her threat and told her I'd go straight to the police if she actually did that. He stole something from me, was caught red-handed, and then denied it. Couldn't trust him, so had to end our friendship. He had already shown very jealous tendencies and had smacked me over the head because he thought I was looking at a guy, so it wasn't good already. We were outside of his friend's house and his friend asked how I was doing, and he got mad at me for answering. I just got in my car and drove away. They couldn't understand working a full-time 9 to 5 meant I could not randomly go out drinking until 2 AM during the week. This girl wanted to hang out and immediately invited me to a passion party, which I googled and came to the misunderstanding that it was a party where people bring their sex toys to show everybody. It sounded super weird, and I didn't know how I felt about bringing my fleshlight. I kind of just ghosted her. Later I realized passion parties are a MLM scheme. The bitch was trying to sell dildos and shit. Nobody brings used toys. I can only imagine what would have happened if I brought the fleshlight. He was a junkie. His family had cut him off and cut him out. I'd driven him to rehab twice. The last time he got out of rehab he had nowhere to go. So I said he could move in with me until he could find somewhere to live. Things were going well for him. Out of the blue I got called away for work. I was gone for a week. When I got back, everything in my apartment was gone, except for my guitar, which was my great-grandfather's and grandfather's before it was mine. At least he left me that. I never heard from again. He's dead now. My brother came to pay me a visit after spending the entire day with my girlfriend. It was time to see my brother, as we hadn't seen each other in quite some time. We made some snacks and are set to begin playing Lotto, which we both enjoy. She dialed my number and had a lengthy phone conversation with me. I mentioned that my brother is waiting for me, and she responded that I'm not allowed to spend my time with anyone else since it belongs to her. It was the last time the two of us spoke. I had a job where there was a good social aspect and we regularly went out for drinks together. A new guy started and turned up at some of these get-togethers unannounced, which wasn't a massive problem, but I didn't notice that over time fewer people were coming out until he was just turning up at my house almost every evening to drink and smoke weed. After a year or so I had to have surgery to have half a lung removed. A week after discharge he was texting telling me I should be getting out there again and trying to get me to go to the pub. I was literally on morphine and recovering from major surgery. A week after that the texts and calls became threatening, accusatory, and eventually revealed that he had been telling people that I was faking the whole thing for attention. The last message I received from him was, "Stop telling lies about me. I'm asking you politely once. Next time you'd best watch your back." I'd not left the house or interacted with anyone who knew him, as I'd barely left my bed. Dude was literally making threats based on his own delusions. I'd already tried to reduce contact as he'd get drunk and start talking about how he kicked in his neighbor's door because they were walking around in the flat upstairs in the middle of the night and other such stories of an extremely antisocial personality. When we were driving, and he was in the wrong lane driving into oncoming traffic for a good 5 seconds. He was high and drunk, and I never hung out with him again. Edit, I didn't know he was drunk. Nobody openly discloses they're drunk before the drive and he wasn't slurring or anything. So how was I supposed to know? She was flying to Ireland to meet some guy she'd become friends with online and wanted me to come with her so she wouldn't be alone on the flight. I said sure, why not? I love traveling and I also don't want you to get murdered. The guy turned out to be both real and very nice, but she spent the entire time we were there putting me down in front of him to look cool. I didn't even like the guy. I was living with my boyfriend, but she was so threatened for some reason. By the second day of getting mocked relentlessly, I was like, fuck it, and spent the rest of the trip exploring Dublin on my own. Once we got home, she and I had a conversation where I basically told her I don't think either of us thought that went well and never talked to her again. She kept cutting me down. Now, I was a very overweight person, and I knew it, but she kept letting me know it. Like, she said she loved to go with me to the mall, because if I was there, then no guys would bother us. I was too naive and lonely to see how terrible she was. Well, over the span of a few years, I lost 100 lbs. She did not like this, and was even meaner to me. I met a guy, and she tried to steal him from me. It didn't work. We are no longer friends. Here's the thing. She was only about 20 pounds smaller than me when I was fat. She didn't see herself that way, though. They were using me as their unpaid therapist. I was starting to dread hanging out because I knew I'd be emotionally exhausted by the end of the night. He turned out to be a pedo. I once broke up with a woman who called me at work to ask me who the woman was that commented a smiley face on a meme I posted on Facebook. It wasn't so much the fact that she asked, but it was the way she asked. Who the fuck is this bitch leaving? Smiles all over your pic. Literally 10 seconds after she commented. Like she was staring at the pic waiting for someone to comment. She started ignoring me because I had to cancel going to see her because I had to take my daughter to the emergency dentist. We live in the same place within walking distance, so it's not like I was canceling the only time we could meet up for ages. I told her to get fucked because we were both in our 30s and shit happens. It was only after I cut her off I realized how much hard work she was as a mate. I've been married for 6 years. She started out thinking she only had occasional bouts of sadness and anxiety, but things quickly spiraled out of control. When she threatened to stab me in my sleep, I moved away. We had already been a number of couples and individual therapists, but she would not accept medicine. I contacted her to arrange a meeting and try to get some closure, but she cut me off, saying I wasn't permitted to leave her and that she was punishing herself by sleeping with 2 other men. I simply ignored her phone number and filed for divorce at that moment. I hope she's doing well, but I'm pleased I'm not in danger. The cycle of them constantly going back to their ex, consoling them and giving sound advice. Repeat. After an argument, my now ex-wife stormed into the living room, where I was sleeping on the couch, and lunged at me. She inquired as to if she reminded me of my stepfather, who used to come into my room at night and stand over me before dragging me out of bed by my ankles. He'd then stomp on me for whatever transgressions I'd committed that day. She was the only person with whom I had ever spoken about it. She left town for work 2 days later, and when she returned, I was gone, and in a different state. The amount of abuse I had endured up to that moment was incredible. It finally occurred to me. The amount of abuse I had endured up to that moment was incredible. It occurred to me at that point that if he had returned to my life, I would not have allowed him to hurt me, so there was no reason for me to allow her to abuse me. This was many years ago. I was still in high school, so somewhere around 94. I had this surplus waterproof ammo can that I liked. It was spun aluminum. I kept loose change in it. I suppose it probably had about $60 worth of change. I showed it to my buddy when he stayed at my house overnight because I thought the can was cool. In the morning, my dad was giving him a ride home. I noticed that the can was gone. I said to my friend, "Did you see where the ammo can went?" He said no. I said, "Did you take it?" He said no. I said, "If you need the money, you can keep the money. I just want the can." He ran away to my dad's car and left. I never trusted the guy again. My parents still talk to him sometimes. I refuse to. I want my can back. It's not like it was that expensive. It was just a weird thing that you can't buy anymore. Keep in mind that this friend also had me transport drugs for him unknowingly, and that didn't bug me as much as a stupid ammo can. There was a guy I met in college who was one of the funniest individuals I have ever met in my life. He was super quick and his humor was insanely in sync with mine. We had all these plans, we were gonna do some projects together. One day, we're in one of our classes, and I noticed he had a little flag paint on his jacket. I said to him, "What's with the pin? Is it like a nautical thing?" To me, it looked like the flags that you would see on a Swatch watch. You know, the kind that they hang from the boat in yachting. So he replies, "Oh, that's the South African flag." I'm a little bit suspicious, so I ask him cautiously, "Oh, are you from South Africa?" And he says, "No, but I had really admire the country. They really know how to keep their *GGERS in their place." I reply with, "Oh man, we can't hang out anymore." He looked at me and asked incredulously, "What? Because I don't like black people you don't want to hang out anymore?" To which I replied, "Yes, that's pretty much it in a nutshell," and never spoke a single word to that dude ever again. Every time a guy liked me, she kept going, "Why does he like you?" continuously. The highlight was when this guy gifted me pretty expensive skincare and the whole night she was mumbling to herself, "Why?" A combination of things, honestly. I'd get extremely anxious if I was told that he was hanging out with the rest of us because he wanted things to go exactly as he planned, and he'd be upset if it wasn't. He'd usually end up pinning the blame on me and then constantly joke throughout the entire time about how I fucked things up, and I'd just have to go along with it. He'd constantly flake on everyone without saying a word, but if you had to cancel on him, he'd get extremely upset at you. One of my friends used the exact same excuse on him that he'd typically use on us after the fact, and he got mad. His family was pretty well off, while the rest of our families were working class families. He expected us to spend money, as if we had the same amount of money his family did, and he'd get upset if you didn't. He felt like he had the right to monitor all of my social media accounts, and to bring up comments made on said social media accounts as he wished. He'd bring up Reddit comments I made anonymously, because I didn't feel comfortable talking about those topics IRL, on sites where I'd have my actual name/face attached to them. He'd wait for me to post anything, and then make snarky, unfunny comments for the sole purpose of making me look bad. I ended up having to block him on everything, and deleting that Reddit account. Whenever we'd play games together, if he was more skilled than I was, he'd make jokes about how bad I was, and how I couldn't do anything right, which were really just thinly veiled insults. If I got upset, he'd tell me to calm down, because he was only joking. Ended that friendship after 7 years, but it honestly ended 6 years later than it should. Always on the giving and very rarely on the receiving end. Only twice received something in 5 years. My former best friend and bandmate starting fucking a 16-year-old. He was 23. I was truly concerned about my safety. I went over and we got into a fight. So I basically slept on the floor. I went to the washroom to text one of my friends to come get me, since I thought she had passed out. My phone made a noise when I received a text from her asking, "Where are you?" When I woke and opened the bathroom door, she was already standing there in the dark, waiting for me. She didn't say anything and simply gazed at me till I passed by. I returned to my original spot on the floor, crawled under the blanket, and feigned to sleep until she did. I peeked out from behind the blankets after about 30 minutes and she was virtually towering above me in total darkness, her eyes wide open the entire time. I was able to get out of there in such a short amount of time. When he started being racist about a very good friend of mine, and then proceeded to write me a review about me instead of saying sorry, cut him out of my life real fast. I had a close friend who ended up contracting bacterial meningitis and passed away at 18 years old. He had caught it while on vacation in Mexico and we were told he may have picked it up while club hopping. I was 17 at the time and absolutely devastated. Another friend who barely knew him wanted attention and made a status on FB a few days after I told her about it that said, "Can't wait to go clubbing tonight, though I fear for my life from meningitis." If you didn't know, my friend Jimmy died of this recently. She had met him 2 times. Accused me of being a Nazi and a witch after I wouldn't have a threesome with him. I was raped and she really was with me through it all. She was my best friend. She helped me at my lowest and was overall what I thought was a decent person. She let me get it all out when I found out he was blackmailing people to be on his side in the trial, and when he was following me, I lost the trial due to blackmail and no kit done. And of course he gloated and she comforted me out. A year later she called me and came clean. She testified for him and helped him get dirt on all the people that were going to testify for me, and that she was sorry, but she did not think he needed to go to jail because he was young and made a mistake. I dumped her like she was hot. I had been friends with this guy for years. He claimed he couldn't work due to a disability. Fair enough. Shit happens. But he lied about that. The real reason he couldn't work was because he had been fired for punching a 10-year-old child in a fit of rage. The same man had also punched his pregnant fiancée and his mum. I couldn't really defend that, so I noped the fuck out. She invited this guy she was chatting with to come hang out with us one day. She had a long-term boyfriend while I was newly single. This guy and I really hit it off. So we started to spend more time together. When she found out, she got so mad. She told me that I stole my backup guy. Her boyfriend dumped her shortly after, and she demanded I stop talking to him so that she could start dating him as she had previously planned, insisting that he was her soulmate. I stopped talking to her instead and so did he. That was 20 years ago, and we are still together. 15 years of marriage and 2 kids. Guess he wasn't her soulmate after all. Back in high school, my best friend, let's call her Olga, and I had a crush on the same guy. Let's call him Sam. Sam was a flirt and was playing both of us without us knowing. Eventually one day, he chose Olga to ask out and cut ties with me. As a good friend, I didn't make a big fuss about it, and although I was heartbroken, I respected their relationship. Olga was from an extremely Christian family, so she was not allowed to date in high school, which meant she had to keep her new relationship a secret. One day after school, I was home minding my business when Olga's mom shows up at my house. She was angry and was screaming at my mom saying I was a lesbian and had corrupted her daughter. I had no idea why she was freaking out as I had done nothing. Come to find out, my best friend was making out with Sam, and he left her a huge hickey on her neck. She tried to hide it from her family, but they eventually found out and demanded to ask her where she got that. And this girl had the audacity, more like stupidity, to say that I had done that to her. That I bit her neck. Yeah. As if that makes it any better. Her mom of course thought this meant we were lesbians and came to my house to confront me and out me to my mom. I have never laughed so damn hard in my life when the mom told me the story, and my best friend left me no choice but to let her mom in on her secret relationship with this douche. After that I never talked to her again, and everyone in the school eventually found out, which left her with a horrible reputation. Funny thing is, because Sam didn't choose me, Literally a week later I met the guy who is now my fiancé. We have been together 7 years and will be getting married, fall of 2023. I legit couldn't believe a thing he said anymore. He would constantly make up medical conditions that he apparently had. He would make up conversations he had with his doctor that would justify anything he said. I'm pretty sure he faked having cancer and faked going through chemo. The only medical condition I think he may have had is schizophrenia. Just based on the number of absurd and unbelievable stories he would tell me about people following him or random people coming up to him on the street to tell him he was a piece of shit human. He would tell me a story like that every day. But according to him, he couldn't have schizophrenia because his doctor diagnosed him with it and gave him medication for it that put him in a coma. So in his mind, that was proof he didn't have it. He became weirdly obsessed with the idea of a romantic relationship with me, to the point where he said he was going to transition to being a woman so we could be together because he knew I wasn't gay. Never mind the fact that I explicitly told him that I wasn't interested in being in a romantic relationship with him. Oh, and I still am, married to my wife, who I had started dating 7 years earlier. My wife and I are very committed to each other and very happy together. We don't have an open relationship or anything like that. He would repeatedly accuse me of hacking his computer to steal the video game he was making. Not that I would have any interest in that, or even the skill set to hack a personal computer. To be fair, I think his mom would tell him that I was doing that. He also would yell at me randomly for telling his mom I didn't want to be friends with him anymore, which I never did. So I think she was poisoning our friendship for some reason. We knew each other since we were children. But as we grew older, he never grew up mentally. He never had a job in his life. He never finished high school. He just lived with his mom and they smoked weed together all day every day. To be clear, in a vacuum, I don't have a problem with people smoking weed. But if you become dependent on it and lack all motivation to properly take care of yourself, I think it becomes a problem. I wouldn't put it past him to stalk my profile. He knows my username. So Cody, if you are reading this, please get help. I care about you, but I can't be friends with you in your current condition. She told me she was suicidal, and I asked her if she wanted me to call EMS, and she said that if I called the cops she'd get me in trouble for filing a false police report. So, she said she was suicidal, but then in a way, admitted she was lying, and she also had no idea how calling 911 and filing police reports were two completely different things. And this happened maybe one whole week after she asked why I stayed in an abusive relationship and told her that part of it was because my ex would constantly threaten suicide. Blocked her number. I already suffered from her previous manipulative BS and caught her in lies before. So, adios to her. Guy was a close friend of mine for more than a decade, all through high school, college and our early 20s. We were friends, roommates, and practically brothers. One day he casually drops a comment that he'd knocked a girl up. I started to congratulate him on his impending fatherhood, but he cut me off with an fuck her. I'm not ready to be a dad yet. If she wants to have a kid, she can raise it herself. Found out the next day that the girl was literally a 17-year-old girl he'd met at a party. He was 26. A decade plus of friendship ended that afternoon. Had a friend, N, who never really had a personality of her own. It always swayed to whoever she was hanging out with / dating at the time. Had always been pretty liberal in the years I knew her, until she started dating a Glenn Beck loving guy. Like this dude seriously hero worships Beck. It's weird. Anyway, he seemed like a decent enough guy. They accidentally got pregnant early in the relationship, so she terminated the pregnancy. No judgment. You do you boo. Then a few years later got pregnant again. Kept that baby. She didn't work, but he had a decent job and supported them best he could. But they smoked a ton of weed and cigarettes and so oftentimes would bum those or money for necessities because they would overspend frequently. Then she gets pregnant a third time and was going to terminate that pregnancy as well, but couldn't afford it. I had offered to loan money. My BF at the time offered money, They had literally nothing to contribute themselves because they owed their weed guy hundreds of dollars. By the time they had muched enough for the abortion, it was past the point they could. Mind you, she had no prenatal care that entire time, about 5 months long, because she wasn't planning on keeping him. We had started to drift a bit after that kid turned 4. I was working crazy hours, bought a house with my now husband, etc, and we mostly communicated through FB. One day she shares a post about how horrible Planned Parenthood was, and the horrific things they do when they perform abortions, and I just couldn't take it anymore. She got government assistance for years, Medicaid, food stamps, the works, and constantly trashed others on social media for doing the same. And I could ignore it. But the abortion post, knowing she had one, and was going to have a second, broke me. I simply posted pot, meat kettle and blocked her. It's been over a decade, and from mutual friends I've learned she hasn't changed a bit. When she wanted to hang out every single day, and when I didn't respond to her text after an hour, she showed up to my house unexpectedly, banging on my door. Her being clingy just was too much. Oh, and she randomly grabbed my arm and shaved it without my permission. After reading so many of these, it made me realize not everyone deserves my forgiveness. She was very controlling. I wasn't a 1D superfan, but I liked some of their music. She got angry with me because of that, and told me we could only be friends if I listened to cool music like Slipknot and Rammstein. So I did it just to please her. When she didn't attend school for some time and came back, she always asked people in our class who I was talking to when she was absent. She would get angry if she heard I spend a lot of time with a specific person when she was gone. When my social battery was down and all I wanted was to sit in a corner and read, she would get emotional and cry over me not paying attention to her 24/7. It was exhausting, especially for an introverted person. She would really enjoy watching me draw. She bought herself a sketchbook and told me to draw in it from now. I was drawing in her sketchbook. She would get sad if I draw something in my sketchbooks for me, which is a pretty big deal if you are an artist, and art is literally the only way you express yourself. I would even say she was a bit obsessed with my drawing. She always asked for more, and she would beg me to gift her one of my sketchbooks, because she felt like the drawing I was putting in hers was not good enough. I ended up giving her one of my sketchbooks that I spent months on finishing. She loved it so much she carried it with her to school every day of the week. When I remembered I had some pretty important sketches left there, I begged her to let me quickly photograph them for future reference. She got offended. I literally had to beg. I hated the way she made me feel, but I also knew she had pretty neglectful parents, so I decided to fake till I make it to college and leave her on a positive note. I'm in college now. She is too. Not so long ago she called me and told me that I'm the only good thing in her life, and she was thinking of K\LING herself. I was the only reason she pushed through and keeps pushing through. I feel awful. Going out for lunch at school, walking to the local bakery, he quickly runs off in front of us and buys every single sausage roll the bakery has, like 30 fucking sausage rolls, puts them all in his bag, basically leaving nothing for us apart from the more expensive food. Sausage rolls were like 25p each. Other similar size foods were about £1 each. After this we started going to the bakery the next town over. It took the full lunch break walking at a good speed just to get there and back. But the guy was super unfit. He tried to come with us 2 or 3 times, and every time he couldn't keep up with our power walking and fell behind, meaning he had to go back to school alone without dinner. We were the only friends he had, and he was heavily bullied. I kind of feel bad for doing that to him, but he did it to himself by depriving the group of food for no reason whatsoever. For me personally, I used to be friends with a guy in the same school as me. He used to be funny and outgoing, but started flirting with me, even though he knew I had a boyfriend. Final straw was when he sexually harassed and then physically assaulted one of my other friends because she rejected him. Never saw him again after moving schools. Only being contacted when stuff goes wrong in her relationships. When she needs something to wear of mine, or when she needs to borrow a few dollars, but never asked me anything about my life or mental health. I had a dear friend from school, who I hadn't seen in a couple years. She moved out of state, plus the whole pandemic thing. We met up for dinner a couple months ago, and she kept talking about her spiritual advisor who she was meeting for weekly $$IONS, and who was helping her become psychic or something. She tried convincing me that she could communicate with her cats telepathically, and that I could too. I tried to make a joke like, whenever my cat does something dumb like fall off the couch, I call him a dumb idiot, and my friend was like, oh no, he can understand you. So yeah, IDK what happened to her, but she seems to have gone off the deep end. My husband and I giggled about it later, and even tested our psychic abilities by offering our cat 1,000 treats if he stood up. He did not. The bad things of slavery did happen, but it wasn't overly common. They were better off here than in Africa. They got a room and board, taught to farm, and given purpose instead of running around a shithole. This dude honestly believed this. Cut ties immediately after. When they had no drive to better themselves. Wanted me to do everything. Started to take advantage with no appreciation, and she ending up flunking out of college for lack of trying. We met through a mutual friend. Hung out twice. He then tried to force me to quit my job and take a week-long vacation in Mexico with him. When I said no, he got mad at me, ranted about money doesn't matter, and then told me that poor people are lame. Little more depth on his character. Super rich kid. Parents spoiled him. Duh. Hangs out at strip clubs 5 nights a week. Paying for 2 different girls' apartments. Has no friends because he uses his money to force people to do whatever he tells them. When they complained about everything and never saw anything as a result of their own stupidity. I was going through a breakup and she, my friend, told me you've been a real bummer lately. My friend of 10 plus years called me a Nazi because Russian propaganda told him I'm one for not supporting Ukrainians getting killed. That was a pretty abrupt end. But he had weird pro-Russian views for years. It's probably my fault for ignoring red flags for years. She told me in my face that she saw me as a competition. She was obsessed with surpassing me in many things. I stopped talking to her about my life years before I cut her out because I knew what she did to people who cut her out. Anyway, any conversation with her for a while was surface level and she wouldn't really care about anything I'd tell her. She told me in my face that she called the boss of one of her ex because she wanted to influence his workplace. I saw her ruin art projects in art school of students she didn't like. She would do temper tantrums to her roommates instead of having normal discussions. She was a walking red flag and would backstab a lot of people. What made me do the last move and block her everywhere was when I told her I was a bit more distant lately because my mom was diagnosed with cancer. My mom, who would always open her home to her when she would have problems at her home when we were teens. She didn't care. She didn't even ask me if I was okay. She continued talking about her obsession about the Olympics as if I said nothing. I was her only remaining friend and she would not listen to her therapists and social workers. I'm worried for her still, but I've blocked her everywhere ever since for my own safety. Her life is probably miserable, but she dug her own grave. She chose me because I shared her ex-first fiance's name, general appearance, and resided in the same part of the state as her 2-year ex-fiance, whom she had just dumped a month before we met. I was even more offended by it all than I was by being outright rejected. Have you ever met someone new that seemed normal at first, but then began oversharing uncomfortable information? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like. If you would like to see more content like this in the future, subscribe and turn on notifications to be notified about future videos. Now check out one of these interesting videos.